why the diaries were so very, very popular. I mean, this is far and above the most popular project I've ever done. And if people are looking for sex on the internet, I absolutely assure you there's better places to go than anything written or edited by me. So why do people come to read these? And it comes down to the fact that our private lives are, by definition, private. And so what that means is that we have absolutely no idea what our neighbors are doing. And this is anthropologically a very new concept. So 10, 20,000 years ago, humans lived in tribes, and if your tribe mate had a zebra fetish, you knew about that. If you had a tribe mate who could only get off by stuffing his loincloth in his mouth and screaming sweet nothings, you knew about that. And today we have absolutely no idea what our neighbors are doing. And this creates two very specific scenarios. The first one is that we are desperately interested in what other people are doing in their private lives. And if you think about it, in your day-to-day life, just in your neighborhood or in your career, you learn a lot just from what you see other people doing. You see, your coworker get out of an annoying work assignment, and you learn from that. You say, oh, I should do that in the future. But our private lives are completely walled off, and there's no opportunity to kind of learn all the things that you learn during the day. So you basically build fewer skills. Because private lives are so private, we're also extremely vulnerable to cultural representations of what normal is. We see stuff in movies and TV, and we sort of accept that that's what normal is because we have no idea otherwise. And what do we learn from culture? What is culture telling us about sex? What it's doing is it's defining it. So you watch TV and movies, and you see these sort of before make-out shots, and then they're not allowed to show the sex, and then you see the after shot. And so sex is sort of defined as this physical interaction that happened between the shots. And then also you go onto Google and you've got your 8 hits of hardcore porn, and that's also what sex is defined as. And so this is why that producer thought that I named my book wrong. And the definition of sex that we get is really such a small slice of the pie. Because what you get when you ask people to keep sex diaries is you get a snapshot of people's entire relationship lives. And I use the word relationship really broadly here. I use it to mean how people are meeting their emotional, their sexual, and their daily support needs. So they could be single, they could be married, whatever. And when you ask people to keep diaries, you're getting all of the ways that they're connecting and disconnecting with other human beings. So it's actually a quite broad book. People often think that what's taboo about this is just talking about the sex. So I'm going to read to you a quote from this is a 20-year-old kid in Boston who is madly, madly in love with his girlfriend. It's 3:20 on a Monday, and he writes, "Here's a funny thing. When we started dating, I would ask if she felt ready to have sex. She was a virgin when they got together. And we finally had sex one night. And from then on, she became a sex maniac." That's all capitalized. "She's all about having sex all the time. I have no problem with this. But I just find it funny that she was a virgin, and then one day she had sex, and then she never wanted to stop ever again." So people think that admissions like that is what is going to be so personal about this. But what I found is that people really, most people will talk about sex with their very best friends. If they're having a problem or a concern or things are going really well, they've told somebody, even if it's their therapist. It's people's relationship lives that they are extremely, extremely private about. So if you have, say, a woman and she feels like she may have married the wrong man, she's not telling her best friend that because she feels that it reflects badly on her. So what happens in the diaries, usually around day 3 or day 4, is you see people really sort of opening the floodgates to what's really going on in their life and what's really making them tick. And it makes for a nice read because you start off getting the kind of surface sex stuff and then you kind of go deep on day 3. I made a bunch of key errors when I first started doing this. I put up ads and just said people could tell me whatever they wanted. And I often get asked what the most disturbing or weird thing that I've ever seen in a diary, and I can answer that unequivocally. I think it was the 5th or 6th diary that I ever got. I'm trying to think about how to tell you this without traumatizing you also. I will say that it involved body bags. and I got to day 4, and I threw up, and I'm not a vomiter. I don't vomit ever, and I threw up. And ever since then, I now have language when I'm talking to diarists. I say that their doe-eyed editor is going to be reading this, and she might be eating lunch while she reads this, and could we just please keep up full levels of honesty and truth, but also levels of decorum. And I have to say, I've never had a problem since, which has been fantastic. So I was collecting diaries at New York Magazine from 2007 to 2010, and they were all New Yorkers, and New Yorkers are very transactional people. The people who keep diaries tend to have both the time and the inclination to do so, by which I mean women ages 25 to 29 who like to use the phrase "spreading my sexual wings." Like, really. There was a lot of cocaine. I felt there was a lot of blowjobs, and there was a lot of rating things. Like people would say, "I would give last night a B+." And I really thought that there might be more out there, and so I started collecting diaries far and wide. And I was really struck by the fact that what I was seeing people doing really was wildly different from what I had assumed and what I kind of seen in public life. And I say that both in terms of sex and relationships, and I'm going to give you 3 examples. The first is just the fundamental idea of what sex is. People who, sexuality counselors, marriage counselors, they talk about pivo-sex, which means penis in vagina orgasm. And that was, at the time, what I defined sex as also. But I'm going to read you 2 entries. One is from a grandmother in Bainbridge Island, Washington. She's 78 years old. And on a Tuesday at 8:13 p.m., she was doing what she calls touching time. We just lie in bed together and please each other with a lot of petting and necking and kissing. We do it maybe once or twice a month. It's kind of like a date. That same week, on a Saturday at 8 p.m., a lawyer who lives a very kind of BDSM lifestyle, also in Washington, who is 45, wrote, quote, "About to do non-orgasmic sex with Allison. I enjoy it pretty frequently, I'd say a couple times a week. It's sexual play without any real direction. A lot of making out, massage, and sometimes penetration. The intention isn't, oh, let's go have sex. The point is to just play and be with each other." Everybody's names and details are changed in these, by the way. So I was seeing this very sort of flexible, wide, broad definition of sexuality, which really changed the way that I thought about sex and mating, and just gave me so many more ideas. And secondly, I was really kind of bluntly hit over the head with the fact that sexual compatibility is not rare at all. So I was sort of raised that you spend a lot of time looking for the one, and that it's really hard to find somebody with whom you might have really great sex. And so I've now read something like 2,500 diaries, and people often, they talk about their previous couplings or groupings. And so I've probably read maybe 10,000 accounts, give or take. And about a third of them seem to have been amazing. That's a lot. So a third are kind of bad, the third are kind of like and then a third are really, really great. And what I come away with from that is that humans are really designed to have sex with many people. That makes sense. Do you want to hang out and have coffee and dinner with all of them afterwards? No, but if you're just talking about, is it possible for me to have chemistry with this person and have a good hour, it's really, really common. What is less common is that alignment of priorities and what people want and lifestyle and personality and sexual chemistry. That's a lot rarer, but not just the sexual chemistry. And the third thing that I just couldn't get away from was I had been sort of raised that you are either in a romantic relationship or you are looking to be in a romantic relationship. And this is blatantly not true in the diaries. There's about a third of the people in there are what I call solo, by which I mean people who are meeting their own emotional and sexual and daily life needs at any one time. They may have sexual ties with one or multiple people, or they may not, but they're fundamentally contained and they're not actively looking to be in a relationship. And there's a lot of statistics that back this up. The U.S. Census says that about a third of U.S. households are people living alone, and in major cities it's up as high as 40%. There's actually a new book that I just saw this week coming out called Going Solo, which talks a lot about these ideas. And so I became really excited to get a book that actually portrays what is going on in people's relationships and sex lives. First, it's kind of counterintuitive, but the most conservative diarists are often the youngest ones, particularly college students, particularly college girls. College girls, if they're in a relationship, a huge percentage of them are absolutely positive that they are going to marry their college boyfriend. They're positive. And they are very strict in what their definition of a relationship is. So you see college students, they're either hooking up, which means kind of no real strong ties there, or they have these very, very deep, tight duos. And it's the older diarists who actually tend to be more flexible. There's, I would say, something like 30% maybe of the diarists over 50 or 60 tend to be really, really flexible and wonderfully creative in their definitions of what relationships are. They often have come out of divorces, they've come out of families, and they're not doing what they're supposed to do anymore. They're doing what they want to do. There's this fantastic couple in the British book. They're both in their 70s. He's been married twice. She's been married once. And they absolutely refuse to move in together. They see each other 3 times a week, and that's how it's going to go. And they've been together for a decade, and they're happy. The diaries are really helpful in letting people kind of write out their experiences on a daily basis, their thoughts, their activities, everything that's happening to them. I think we all sort of tell ourselves these narratives. We say, I am super hot and everybody loves me, or I am not getting laid enough, whatever your narrative is. And what people find is that when they write down everything that's happening to them and they read that, that narrative is often really different than whatever the heck it is that they've been telling themselves. And so the project has really taken this sort of sharp left turn into self-help and self-discovery, which I absolutely wasn't expecting. People come to the website and to the book for the voyeurism, and they kind of stay around for the self-discovery. So the project is now sort of in another iteration online where people come for a whole set of different reasons, which has been incredibly fulfilling for me. People ask me a lot who my favorite diarist is, and it is a grandma. She's 80 years old from San Francisco, and she says these fantastic things. She's like, you want comfort and love? Go make yourself some oatmeal. That's love. and she when I asked her to keep her diary, she told me that she had been happily married for 45 years, and so I was expecting this kind of romantic take, not someone who says, quote, if a man asked for coffee, I'd say, there's the kitchen. So I'm really so happy to share this all with everybody, because the project has been so helpful to me in realizing where sex fits into my life, what love means to me, and what my priorities are. And I think that's really what you pick up from reading other people's diaries. It's not so much that you are going to become the diarist that you see, but that you see how they're using sex and love in their life, and it kind of rubs off on you, and it forces you to kind of think through who you are and what you are doing. I wanted to leave you all with a very useful note. And in the book, I've seen a lot of breakups, and they become very predictable after a while. So I wanted to give you the 3 signs so that you'll know when your friends are actually going to break up. So sign number 1, the constant use of the word should, as in how things should be versus how they actually are. It comes up every 3 sentences. It's really, really quite notable. 2, there's a rhythm to couples that are getting along, and in sociology, it's very visible at a diner or at a restaurant. You can see if a couple is kind of on the same wavelength. They tend to mirror each other, and they tend to kind of move at the same time. And it's also very obvious when people are writing about their partners. It's in the language, and you kind of read it out loud, and it's just there's not a rhythm anymore. It's kind of bumpy. And the 3rd is dissonance between what they are saying and what they are doing. So they say, I love Amy, and then they say, I was an hour and a half late for dinner last night with Amy. And you get that a lot, that kind of split. And that is how you know that the end is near. And the end is here. I am done.